1917 is the Golden Globe winning epic from director Sam Mendes. This movie was released around Christmas time, if I'm not mistaken, in the United States, but it did not get a wide release and it did not find its way into my theaters until January 10th. I just got back from a screening and I was relatively impressed. I do have a few minor gripes with the movie, but nothing so big that I would call this a bad film by any means. Between massive critical praise and a Golden Globe Best Picture win, I was pretty excited to see this movie and I had some pretty high hopes. Now, I don't know if it lived up to those hopes, but I do think this film was pretty damn good. It tells the story of two corporals in the British Army, Corporal Schofield and Corporal Blake, very close friends, and they are tasked with delivering a message of an incoming onslaught on a fellow division. Let's start with things I like. The world building and the silent storytelling is excellent. This is one of the few war films that I've seen that don't really need to explain things that are happening. They understand that if the audience is coming to see a World War I film, they understand the ramifications of what a World War I film will contain. A common praise I've seen given to this film is that it is immersive, and that praise is so common because it is absolutely true. Between the world building, the detail-rich clutter that is spread all throughout the film, all of the props, all of the sets, and without a doubt, what could be considered as a gimmick but functions very well in this film, the meticulous editing to make the film seem as though it is all one shot. It sucks you in a way that few war films do. It's very straight to the point with the action, and because of that, it's very in the moment. We don't get to cut back to see what's happening behind the front lines. We don't get to cut back to anything. We have to stay in the moment with these guys, what they know, what they can see. And so it feels less like we're viewing the film through a camera. It feels more like we are witnessing these events. As for the characters that we do follow, I'm not going to pretend that they were super fleshed out or that they were special in any way, because they weren't. Blake had a little bit more meat on the bones to his character, but Schofield was just a Mary Sue, really. And while I critique their character, I understand that that is not really what the film is about. The emotions that they go through are what the film is about. And in terms of acting, the two mains do an excellent job. They show a very wide range of emotions in reaction to things that happen around them. They don't just power through things. They stop, they cry, they mourn. And this ties back into the visual storytelling that's so potent throughout the film. The characters don't just blurt things out. They'll stop and look over something quickly. No one says anything, but you understand what is going through their mind. I think that the use of silence was underrated in the film, and it's probably my biggest gripe with it. I really wish that they would have just let the score die at some parts. When it's used well, it is used well. When they first step foot on the battlefield, the low, resonating drone of the soundtrack really amplifies the immediate shift between the calm and the massive tension they feel crossing this section of land. But other moments, such as when we go from total silence to gunshots, I think the panic would have been amplified even more if I could have heard the voice of the soldier instead of the screaming soundtrack and the shrill strings. The film also seems to try and top every action scene that is in it. It starts off pretty believable, but by the end, it's a little unbelievable. I understand that this is a film, it is cinema, it is meant for entertainment, and it is not a true story. But when the film is so grounded in reality and we get these scenes where the German soldiers are just stormtrooper aiming, can't hit a man that is 5 feet in front of them, the suspension of reality is kind of lost. I think the ability to break the immersion that is so masterful early on in the film in these later bits where it gets so unrealistic is kind of bad. But for the most part, the film does keep things relatively realistic. So it's not a huge issue. It's just a really bothersome one. Now that being said, there was a point in this film where a building is on fire and I thought, wow, this shot really reminds me of like Blade Runner 2049, and lo and behold, I didn't even know Roger Deakins was doing cinematography on this, so of course the movie is gorgeous. There's not a scene in here that looks bad. There's a lot of scenes that are very dark, but it's used in a clever way. There's a part where one soldier has to strangle another soldier and he's doing it in the shadows. Because we can't cut, we have to stay in the shadows. I think overall, I found 1917 from a technical standpoint to be virtually flawless. I didn't think it was a masterpiece, but I do think it was worth your time, and for now, I think we'll give this one an 8 out of 10. Wait, this is now the 14th highest rated film of all time on IMDb. Just above Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, The Matrix, and Goodfellas. I mean, it's not hard to be better than The Matrix, but it's whatever. Y'all tripping.